So we had a call last night. We're shifting topics here. We only got a few more topics left, 3 left. But I thought that Charleston had a very interesting comp for one of the top 3 prospects. I'm just going to say it, the consensus top 3 prospects in the 2023 NBA draft are Victor and Scoot, and to a lesser extent, Amen Thompson, but it feels pretty firm with the way other guys are playing right now. And you know what? I'm going to start out with Charleston here, and I'm going to let him start out with some of his top draft pick comps.
So to me, I think that Scoot Henderson plays an awful lot like Kevin Johnson. You might remember him from playing in the 90s with Charles Barkley on the Phoenix Suns. And to me, it's like this combination of the way that they move with the ball as they're attacking towards the basket. And then it's like that freak athleticism that both of them have, where it's this very quick burst, first jump type thing that I don't really see all that often. But the other thing that I really comp similarly to Kevin Johnson is the kind of like low to the ground to then very springy, like Russell Westbrook. I see the Russ comp for Scoot Henderson a lot. And for me, Russell Westbrook is a very stiff, not very fluid athleticism where it's just kind of one big brunt force movement.
Facts.
Kevin Johnson and Scoot, on the other hand, have this very like up and down kind of flow to them that I don't really see. I have never seen from anyone else besides Kevin Johnson. So I just brought it up last night. I thought it was awesome. That was a good comp.
You also talked about Amen Thompson, and you talked about Vic a little bit.
Amen Thompson, for me, he reminds me of Penny Hardaway, just because of like, they're both these really big playmakers, but they're not like Magic or Luka size. They're more of these athlete playmakers that you see similar to, honestly, I can't really name anything besides Penny Hardaway. He was Grant Williams, not Grant Williams. I'm mixing up my guys. He played for the Pistons, 33. Grant Hill. I'm sorry. Yeah. Grant Hill.
He has like a little like sprinkle of Jake Layman in this game too.
Jake Layman. Oh yeah. Dude.
Hey, Jake Layman is bouncy as fuck. Don't ever hate on my boy Jake Layman.
I'm not hating on Jake Layman. I remember last year when he took over fourth quarter in garbage time and the entire crowd was chanting MVP. I got a video of me after he goes for a crazy dunk, just like throwing my fist and picking up my dad.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was against the Celtics, right?
Yes, it was.
That was Portland, wasn't
it? It was. No, I think it was Celtics because we had like all of our top guys out.
It wasn't that game. It was later in the season.
Oh, I got it. Oh yeah, probably.
But yeah, no. I think that Amen Thompson and Grant Hill and Penny Hardaway, they all move kind of in a very similar way. It's all like, you can tell that their games have all been programmed to just go downhill. And then when you get into the air, find the layup or make the pass. And all 3 of them show this very unique ability to both finish through contact and also make very, very hard reads through contact. They play very similarly to me.
Got any Vic comps?
No, there's nothing ever been like him. It's Kevin Durant, but 6 inches taller. It's like Victor Wembanyama is an enigma in that he is a 7'4" small forward. It's never
he cuts the rim like crazy and switches into perimeter.
He's a Kevin Durant, Gobert a baby.
Yeah.
I've always said my comp has always been Anthony Davis plus 6 inches of better shooting. It's like a little bit of Kevin Durant shades, but like a bigger Anthony Davis.
But like, that's not even a good comp because you're just changing Anthony Davis. You know what I mean?
He has Kevin Durant elements to his offense, but like his defense reminds me of a bigger Anthony Davis.
Young Anthony Davis. He doesn't have that bulk. He's very thin.
Yeah, AD got bigger. But what I'm saying is in terms of the versatility, protecting the rim, but also switching out.
I'm him in the league, bro. That shit's gonna be crazy. He is.
Why couldn't Tim Connolly make that pick top 1 protected? Why did you add an extra swap in the trade? If you're gonna overpay, do it right.
It's okay.
Right?
It's okay.
Sorry. top
James had to get that out.
If we find a way, if that pick turns into Utah, I don't know what I'm going to do.
I might cry for you.
I might just start following the French league.
You have to start watching soccer.
You gotta
I'll start following Stade Rion.
No. You gotta be a Utah Jazz fan. You're gonna be like,
No.
these are Timberwolves players. They're
I
just on the wrong team.
One, I don't like Malik Beasley, so no. Number two, like it's Utah. Come on. Their jerseys just gross me out sometimes. Some of their old jerseys were sick, but like this weird like desert theme they've tried to do the past couple of years, man.
I got a pretty good comp that I want to share for one of these top guys. I told you this a few weeks ago, James, when I was doing like a bunch of evaluations on these guys. He's a little lower. He's my number 11 prospect right now. He's a lottery guy. I think Cason Wallace is so similar to Patrick Beverley. They're both extremely, just pesky defenders on the perimeter. He's a excellent perimeter defender. He can shoot the ball. He can be a tertiary or a secondary and sometimes primary playmaker. He hasn't gotten that role as much because he's playing next to Severe Wheeler for Kentucky this year. They got really similar builds. I think they're both 6'2". They both have like the same haircut as well. It's not current Patrick Beverley, but we're talking more like 2017, 2018 Clippers Patrick Beverley. I think Cason Wallace shows so many traits similar to him.
He reminds me of Drew Holiday.
Yeah, him too. Drew Holiday and
he's got like that. Like at that stage, he has a Holiday like frame at that age, but he also gives way more offensively.
Wallace is a bulky guard for 6'4". He looks he looks and feels like 200 pounds. So I'd like
he's
to
big.
See that frame.
All right, Freddie, you could talk about the top few prospects. Zach has been cooking with his draft eval, so he had to mention some of the deeper guys in there. I got to ask him about Council later because he's my draft crush. But
yeah, I haven't gotten into the depths of this draft. I do like the top. Like obviously Victor Wembanyama. I already mentioned. I literally, it's literally like you guys said, there's no comp for this kid. There's just never been, this type of package on this type of size. Like the closest thing I can think of is KG. Like a legit 7-footer. Just like a taller version of KG, dominate the defensive end. On the other side of the ball, dominate the other side of the ball. But he has an even higher ceiling as an offensive player than KG. You know what I mean? So it's like, with him, it's all about health. You know what I mean? Like, if this kid is able to have a 10, 12-year career, he's gonna reach the GOAT tier. Everything's there if he's healthy enough. And that's a big if, because we have never, Shaq is was 7'2". He's like the look how he was built. You know what I mean? He lasted till 33. Could Victor last till 33? You know what I mean? Like, that's a lot to ask for a skinny 7'4" kid that will probably never put on size.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And this is why, this draft, as good as he is, bro, whoever has the number 1 pick has to do their homework, because Scoot is as legit a prospect as we've seen in the last 5 years. There is nothing about this kid that tells me he won't take the league by storm like D Rose did when he came into the league. Even a better offensive package than D Rose coming in, because I like his jumper more than D Rose. He's just as freak of an athlete. He could play make. He can He can carry you offensively, and could we see this kid dominating for 15 years? He's built like a god. You know what I mean? So it's like, I understand. It's like nobody is passing up on Victor. But it's like, dude, you have to do your homework and you have to be sure that this kid is going to be, what if you get a 5 to 7 year window with Victor to dominate and you get a 12 to 15 year window with School?
Mhm.
Who do you take?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been thinking, as the Timberwolves enthusiast myself, I've actually come up with the idea that Tim Connolly is an absolute genius. Because the reason why he traded for Rudy Gobert is because what he's going to do is lure Victor to Minnesota because they're best buddies.
Yep.
Basically like Miami, right? Think about it. Like you got D Wade and Ant, and you got LeBron and Victor. History repeats itself, right? Heck, the city start with an M. Minnesota, Minneapolis, Miami, they start with an M. So yeah, that's definitely happening. But but when it's hard to disagree with you guys on this one. Victor he has the highest ceiling in the world. He has the highest ceiling in the world. There's nobody. Rim protection is the most important defensive trait in basketball because you're taking away a spot that all 5 players can go to. You're taking away a spot. If you are taking away the paint, you are forcing players that shoot mid-range shots usually because it allows guards to force you to the 3-point line. So rim protection is the most important trait in basketball. And Victor has that, but he can switch and contest from 3 because he's got an 8-foot wingspan. There's nobody like that. There's never been somebody with a 10-foot, 2-inch standing reach. There's nothing to compare that to. And then you add the fact that he is in a dynamic offensive weapon. They say he's like KG or KD. He is not the shooter KD is, but I get the comp that he is incredibly fluid. He's got a handle, like I said, I kind of go to AD a little bit offensively because AD is one of the best ball handling bigs in the NBA offensively. And you would think he's a better shooter than he is, right? I think it's sort of similar to Victor, even though I think he's going to continue to improve as a shooter, not like AD to an extent. So I think there's a lot of AD. I think there's a lot of KD. There's a lot of KG. I mean, anything with 2 letters you can compare him to.
Literally.
And Scoot Henderson, like when I watch him drive, he reminds me a lot of Anthony Edwards with the way he slashes, the way he puts pressure on the rim, the way they move. Like Edwards is one of those like really shifty, explosive, high stride type of players. The way he goes around the rim, he does that high step Euro almost, or the gather step. I see a lot of that with Scoot, but also the ability to finish through the basket. Obviously, he's like 3 inches shorter than Edwards. But I think that's my best driving comp for him. And then you add a guy who I think is going to be a good shooter in the NBA, a guy who's going to defend at a high level, I think, eventually. Unlike a Ja Morant, unlike a Derrick Rose, I think his body is meant to play 82 games in the playoffs because of how stout he is. He can play through contact. He's got those trunky legs. He's got those big shoulders, right? That is meant to play 82 games. So like what Freddy said, like maybe one team says, you know what, Scoot plus 3 first-round picks. If we have a franchise center, we'll take it. Like that is not I don't think anybody does that, but it's something to think about, right? Just think about, so like, I don't think anybody in 2019 would have considered taking Ja over Zion. What if the Pelicans decided we'll take Ja Morant and 3 first-round picks from somebody? What if Memphis deals 2-3 first-round picks plus Ja Morant, who has a lower ceiling than Zion Williamson, but he's still a superstar in his own right, and you get more draft capital to build around? I think I wouldn't pass on Victor personally, but I get that level of thinking. Nobody ever thought that Zion or Ja would be better than Zion. Nobody ever thought Hakeem would be better than MJ. I'm not saying they're going to be those guys. That's idealistic in terms of comparisons, but you got to think about that. Sometimes the generational big isn't always the best player in the draft. So it's something to think about, which I agree with Freddie.
Yeah, I think like this draft class, I don't think there's just like one guy that's like, there's one number one overall pick in this class. I think this draft class legitimately has two guys like at the top. Like I think whoever lands the second overall pick is going to feel like they got the first overall pick, because Henderson in a lot of recent drafts is the number one overall pick. And like last year, I think he'd be the number one overall pick last year. The year before that, probably the number one pick. The year before that, number one pick as well. Like
Not Zion's draft.
Well, not Zion. I was talking about the Ant one last. Like I think he probably goes over Ant.
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Definitely over Ant.
Like,
Yeah.
teams are not just going to be tanking this number one overall pick. You're tanking for the number two overall pick too, because Henderson, I think, is going to be an All NBA guard. Like I don't think he's as good as Wembanyama, but he is going to be so good in the NBA. He definitely held his own, especially in that first game against Wembanyama. Yeah, I think this draft class kind of has like two number one picks.
If you're an NBA team, guys, and they look at Victor Wembanyama, who's had some really weird falls this year. Do you guys remember that fall where it looked like his leg got like crisscrossed in half and he like it was like a draft falling? Have you ever seen?
Yeah.
You saw that video,
Yeah.
right? If you're an NBA team and you see, I don't know, maybe your concern level about his health is a 6 out of 10, and your concern level about Scoot is a 1 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10, and you get a boatload of picks back plus Scoot, are you thinking about that?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know how many concerns I have about Wembanyama's overall health.
I'm just saying
He-
hypothetically.
Yeah. But
He's
hypothetically,
already
yeah,
been banged up a lot. He's been banged up. He was banged up last year, and he's been banged up a little bit this year. You
Mhm.
know,
yeah. Like I don't think his frame's gonna improve that much, because I heard about like his pregame regime and like what he does. Like he does like 30 minutes, these really weird stretches before every game, and he does not lift weights. Like this, he's not like really trying to build muscle. This is like the frame that he's at right now is probably the frame we'll see for a lot of his career. Maybe he gains like 10 pounds, but you're not gonna really see his frame change. So yeah, I think there could be like obviously the back of the mind for every team when they draft him, they're gonna be thinking, yeah, I mean, this guy is 7'4" and he's got a thin frame. There's gonna be some issue along the way potentially with how that fits at an NBA level. Is there an injury that could occur, because it's easier to get injured when your frame's that thin. Ultimately, obviously, I don't think it would get in the way of teams drafting him, but yeah, I think it could definitely be a legit thing that's in people's brains. Like, maybe do we try to trade back to number 2 and try to get Sue Henderson, who I think could be a safer pick in general, but obviously doesn't have as much upside.
Yeah. It's one of those things like you got to do your homework. I think the worst thing you can ever do as an NBA general manager is get too excited and let your emotions get out of it. Doesn't mean that I am saying you got to pass on Victor. Not saying that. I probably wouldn't either. What I'm saying is do your homework.
The only thing that that I just came to mind, if the Jazz bottom out and Danny Ainge ends up with the number 1 pick, we've seen him do it before. And in the Tatum draft, Tatum was locked in at 3-4, and Fultz was the clear number 1 guy. And the Celtics even needed a point guard. And he still traded down for Tatum. So, Victor is, a different animal here. But so was Greg Oden when KD was sitting behind him. And we all knew KD was going to be special. And we all believed Greg Oden was going to be special. And he had a wrist injury in college. He had a extremely high basketball IQ in a big man era. A healthy Greg Oden would have won you a championship with a healthy Brandon Roy. You know what I mean? So look at the way that played out, where it's like, God forbid this is the case, and Victor comes in and, his body doesn't hold up, and then Scoot goes on to build a GOAT resume like KD. That's not crazy. Like life is fragile. And that could be the case. So this is why, as you're saying, like, you got to do your homework. because you just never know how, these windows and these narratives are going to play out.
Charleston, what do you think?
I completely agree with everything you guys are saying. I think there is some injury risk, but I don't really see a world in which the person with the number 1 overall pick doesn't take Victor Wembanyama. I think that'd be foolish.
There's also the element to it, right? The business element.
Uh-huh.
Like, this is the international prospect of ever existence.
Yeah.
Right. And the moment this guy comes to your franchise is going to be worth $400+ million than it did the day before. And you are going to get every national television game. You're going to get an entire country behind you. You are going to get an entire continent behind you when talking about Europe, right? You're just going to imagine if Toronto got the number 1 pick and you got the Canadian background, you got the French background, that could boost their value even more. Like, the business element also matters here. So yeah, I agree. Like, I don't see anybody passing on Victor, and I'm not saying they should. Like I said, Victor is the best prospect I have seen, but you got to do your homework. You got to make sure he is healthy. You got to make sure that you are fine taking the risk. But, yeah, there's a lot of factors here. The business, the game, all of that. And plus, I think building around a guy who can dominate the paint, but also be an engine offensively might be the easiest player to build around in basketball, because you got both sides of the floor covered in terms of the foundation.